Welcome to the Heroic Investing Show. As first responders, we risk our lives every day. Our financial security is under attack. Our pensions are in a state of emergency. A single on-duty incident can alter or erase our earning potential instantly and forever. We are the heroes of society. We are self-reliant and we need to take care of our own financial future. The Heroic Investing Show is our toolkit of business and investing tactics on our mission to financial freedom.
Hello and welcome to episode 162 of the Heroic Investing Show. Welcome back, everyone. This is a podcast for first responders, members of the military, veterans, and anyone looking to improve their financial future and gain some freedom with their time. We teach America's heroes how to build passive income, build their startup business, and safely grow wealth through real estate and other alternative investments. My name is Gary Pinkerton, and I co-host this show with Jason Hartman, and it is our hope, it is our goal, that you're gaining some value out of this. So please do give us feedback. I have, a few really good listeners that do an awesome job giving me feedback on every episode, and I truly appreciate that. Whether you see it or not, it is incorporated in every future show and every future guest I bring on. So this has been just over a year for me in doing this podcast, a tremendously good experience. I hope to continue doing podcasts for many years to come. But your feedback, your motivation to put aside all the other stuff we're doing in life and make this production happen for the upcoming posting of the podcast is really helpful. So please do keep that coming back. So in the most recent episode on 161, you saw me take a little bit of a different slant on real estate passive investments, and that was with short-term rentals. Now, I'd done one podcast several weeks ago, and I'm going to follow up another one right after this in 163. So, I might be interested in why we're doing that. And if you've listened to the previous, I think the first time I did one of those, I mentioned that it's because my wife Sue and I have recently purchased a short-term rental. And we're now in the full throes of working with our management team to market that. We had the first people stay in the facility, and we're looking forward to visiting it ourselves down in December when we're down in Florida. So all of this is just to say that it's new for us. I know I'm not introducing Airbnb to the listener audience, but I might be introducing the idea of taking a property that you have near the coast and using it with short-term rental, because I think what I'm introducing to you is that there is an established network of managers out there that will take care of this for you. I mean, for me, the biggest risk or the biggest concern I had was time, right? This is a full-time thing. If you've ever rented Airbnb, you know that you have the ability on the app to reach out to the owner, and within a couple of hours, the guy's going to reach back out to you most times of the day and night. So that wasn't something that I was really interested in doing. Also, I didn't know how to market it on all these different sites to get the best, money, because it's very simple to figure out what's my rent going to be when I'm doing long-term rental, right? It's just whatever the market bears, and there's plenty of established renting sites to figure that out. Even Zillow will tell you that, right? It might not be accurate, but it'll tell you a number that's fairly close. Like hotels, as you get closer to rent day, or the vacancy day, rents can vary by 50, 75%, right? And so how do you manage that, and how do you know you're getting anywhere near the top end? Well, I can tell you that I've been pleasantly surprised, and I'm planning to have my property manager, Gretchen, on the show to kind of help explain how she's doing this stuff for us, because she's fantastic, and we're just having a great experience right now. I mean, we're not going to get ultra wealthy on this property, I don't think, but it's paying its bills, which is a nice thing. And it's just a really interesting place to go down. We've only got one. We're only planning to have one here in the near future. But I want to share that experience with you. And I don't think there's a lot of podcasts out there showing you how to do this. Jason's short-term rental podcast does talk about it. There's not a lot of discussion about having a property manager involved. And I think that's where we kind of bring a little bit different little slant to it. So this next upcoming episode here, we'll talk a little bit about the concept of short-term rentals. And then we'll be back to maybe a little bit more traditional stuff. I have a lot of great guests that I've interviewed that we have coming up in the future episodes, and today is definitely no different. So this is a great show. I'm interviewing Jordan Goodman. He's a very well-known journalist, financial journalist. You might have heard him recently on the Wealth Standard podcast with Patrick Donahoe, and if not, you should go listen to that one. at wealthstandard.com. I mean, it was a great interview, and it was completely different topics than what you'll hear here on my show. So Jordan has been coined America's money answer man, and he really dives into personal financial management. I'm sure you've come across Jordan, if not on a podcast, perhaps on CNN's Business Day. He does a public radio show. He's been on NBC, Fox, ABC, CBS, so he's been out there on just about every financial network. What he does well is that he teaches the underlying principles of responsible personal finance, and you'll hear that come clear in our show today. He makes clear the impact of current events on the consumer's wallet, and then he provides outstanding resources that can help the consumers to take the next smart step. And on our show, we're going to talk a lot about some advantages and mortgages and things that veterans and America's heroes have in their court. He's been also a very prolific writer. What we're going to talk about today really comes from Master Your Debt, which is a book that he wrote in 2010. He also wrote The Ultimate Guide to Student Loan and many others. Another one that you may be familiar with is Everyone's Money Book, and he did a series on that, and then Mastering Your Money Type in 2006. So he's got a lot of great books. I've read a few of them, and I think Jordan is a perfect guest for our audience. We don't agree on everything, and like Jason, I try to point out when, I'm not 100% aligned with my guests. One of the things that Jordan talks about in his books, for example, in Master Your Debt, is the idea of paying off your traditional mortgage and using a home equity line of credit as a primary mortgage. That's not consistent with kind of how I look at safety and control. I talk a lot about liquidity, use, and control. I got that from a great mentor of mine, Kim Butler. And it seems initially, first blush, if you don't know about 2008 and prior crises, or haven't really dug into the control that the bank or the lender has with respect to HELOCs, it seems that you have liquidity, use, and control when you have a line of credit like that. You get to choose when you're going to use the money and for what, right? But in fact, they hold all the cards. They hold the control in the decision of when they're going to call that due. And in 2008 and 2009, most lines of credits were called due, resulting in thousands and thousands of people, going into foreclosure on properties that they were previously not in trouble on before they were, told it was called due. And of course, that's not, at least it has never happened in U.S. history for long-term fixed-rate debt. So, meaning like the 30-year, Fannie Mae, or even a 20-year commercial loan. So that's really kind of where my concern is there. Now, with that one caveat, man, this is a great interview with Jordan. He provides so much incredible content. And I think, Mastering Your Debt is a book that we should all get out there and read. The first thing we talk about is, special mortgage deals available for American heroes. Digs kind of deep into that for both purchasing primary residence and other properties. And there's several deals out there about, lowering the costs for closing. And if you happen to be with a provider, a lender, a seller that participate in that, there's an opportunity for, getting some interest rate cuts on some stuff or some cost reductions on things. We also talk about some secured real estate funds and an opportunity maybe to earn some money there. I'm not someone who participates a lot in funds or as passive investor, but there is certainly some convenience advantages to doing that. And so you might look into that. And of course, I've talked about on the show that I've got some other real estate opportunities and things like that are on the passive side if you're interested. So if you're interested in that term, that concept, certainly reach out to Jordan and myself. And then he gives some great advice about improving your credit score and different ways that you can verify your loan and escrow payments and PMI payments. So PMI can be money down a drain. So you want to be very careful and thoughtful about when you're paying PMI and making sure that they're only charging you the correct amount on PMIs. He introduced me to concerns out there, concerns and past experiences where individuals have been paying PMI and they weren't supposed to be paying it. So very interesting. I hadn't thought about that. And so I found it very helpful. So a really long introduction because I wanted to do a little intro to some of the other upcoming podcasts. I'm very blessed, and I think the audience is blessed to have Jordan on the show with us. Very grateful that he took some time to be with us. Man, really enjoy this episode, and I look forward to seeing you out there for the next one. Take care, and thanks. Thank you so much for joining me again. And as I mentioned, we have a special guest with us today, Jordan Goodman, who prolific author and contributor in many financial magazines and documents and shows. And so all of that was in the introduction. I don't want to take up too much of his time and steal Jordan's thunder. Jordan, first and foremost, thank you so much for joining us.
Glad to be with you, Gary. Really appreciate it.
So, gosh, you have an incredible background. And as you know, and as we talked a little bit on the pre-show, the target audience here are first responders. So those EMTs, firefighters, police officers, individuals retired from that, as well as veterans and active duty members of the military. And really, I think what brings that group together are that they have lots of demands on their time. They work extremely odd hours, often, nighttime and sleep during the days. When the markets are going on, and often they'll deploy for long periods of time away from home. And so I'm trying to lower the barrier to entry to a group of people who see barriers everywhere and are not operating with the knowledge and the water cooler environment to be able to learn from everyone else. So I think maybe at the beginning, before we forget or run out of time to do that, let's talk about what's in your book and what you provide and what you educate American heroes on some advantages they have for mortgages.
Well, you're right. These are people that really need help, and there are some terrific resources specifically aimed at them that in many cases they probably don't know about that can save them a huge amount of money, make them money, and do much better with their finances. And this is not something you're going to learn about for the most part in the armed forces. I've actually done speeches on military bases around the country, and these are things they don't teach them about there. So hopefully we're going to bring some value to them that they haven't heard about before.
Yeah, you're right, Jordan. I really appreciate you giving us some time to do that. I mean, I was in the military for 30 years, and I didn't know about any of these.
Exactly. That's where people should be listening to your podcast. So we're on the same page there. So let's just start off with mortgages and buying a home, which is the biggest financial decision a lot of people make. And there's a program out there which is called Heroes Come First, which helps exactly the people you're talking about to get big discounts on interest rates, on closing fees, getting rebates of real estate agents' commissions, even getting grants for first-time home payments, like down payments, things like that. So it's a terrific program that a lot of people have never heard about before, actually. So if I can, let me just go into some of the details of that so we can serve your audience.
Yeah, and first let's talk about the wide net that Heroes covers under this program.
So heroes are considered current or former military, active duty or veterans of any kind, police, fire, law enforcement of any kind, healthcare of any kind, doctors, dentists, nurses, anybody in the healthcare world, teachers, and clergy. It's a pretty wide net of what are considered heroes. And if you're in any of those areas, you're going to be able to get the kind of big savings and discounts we're talking about in the Heroes Come First program.
That's amazing. All right, let's jump in.
Okay, so Heroes Come First. First of all, if you're a home buyer, you get a rebate of 1/4 of the realtor's commission when you buy a home. So what it comes out to is for every $100,000 in the sales price of the home, you get a check for up to $700. So just to give you an example, if you had a $300,000 home that you were buying, you'd get a check for $2,100. So the real estate broker is willing to give up 1/4 of their commission to get the sale, basically. So it obviously has to be a real estate realtor who goes through this Heroes Come First program. But right there, I just gave you $2,100 if you had $300,000. So that's the first thing. The second thing is towards closing costs. So they have what's called a lender hero reward of typically between $500 and $1,000 towards closing costs. Title, lawyers' fees, escrow, all the different closing costs involved. You get typically up to $1,000 on that. Then on title search, they give you typically $350 for title search fees from the title companies that are associated with this program. In addition to that, borrowers can get a purchase grant of up to $10,000 that can be used for the down payment on a home. And that's grants don't have to be repaid. That's not a loan, that's a grant. So that's
right.
Nobody else is out there giving you $10,000.
Right. So now what qualifies you for a grant like that? Is it, disability or
no? In the case of there are different levels. To get the full $10,000, you have to have been, I think, in a war zone or kind of in a combat situation, something like that. You can't be like at a desk back at the Pentagon. You can get something, but you can't get the full $10,000 unless I think you've been actually, in date, something like that.
Okay.
So that's nice to get $10,000 towards your first home.
Absolutely.
And then if you're on the seller side, if you're selling your home, you can get a discount, the same kind of thing. You get 1/4 of the realtor's commission on the seller side. So that typically amounts to about $2,000 or so. But again, if it's a higher priced home that you're selling, it could be higher than that as well. So let me just give you a very simple example of how this might add up in a kind of a typical situation. Say you were on both sides of the transaction and you owned a home that you were selling for $300,000, and then you were buying a new home for $450,000, and you were taking out a $360,000 mortgage, just kind of a typical example. So the numbers that would add up would be the rebate on the selling side would be $2,250. The rebate when you buy, a quarter of the buyer's realtor's commission, would be $3,150. The discounts on the title search fees would be $1,000. So in that case, buying and selling those kind of homes, the total savings would be $6,750. And nobody else is going to offer that to you. So there is a website, Gary, people can find out about this, which is heroescomefirst.com. They've also got a phone number, which is 888-437-6114. And at that website, they have a list of all the realtors and the title companies and all the players involved anywhere in the country who will do that for you and give you that discount and give you a good deal on your mortgage as well. So that hopefully can help a lot of your listeners.
That's awesome. So I was looking at the website, and so this is coming out of the providers' commissions, right? So the realtors, the title company, they're just saying, "Hey, we'll give a discount because they're military or they're a hero." They're
trying to give back to heroes in a substantive way. It's nice if you're in the airport and you say thank you for your service. That's nice, but this is giving them thousands of dollars, so that's better.
Right. So how about the grant, though? I mean, where is that coming from?
It's from the lender.
Okay.
The lender is giving you up to a $10,000 grant to get you into the home. That's a good thing. They're taking less profit in order to help a hero, basically, is what it comes down to.
Okay. So, well, I think that's amazing. Anything on that program that we haven't touched on or thought about?
I think you basically got the idea. You just get these discounts. You just have to go through the providers, whether it be the realtor, the title company, the closing company that works with them. But at that website, heroescomefirst.com, they lead you to it. And pretty simple, but something most people have no clue even exists.
Yeah. So now do you personally get involved with many mortgages, or you said you did some education on bases, military bases. I'm sure you've gotten into a lot of the VA loan process.
I am a journalist, author, speaker, writer. Mm-hmm. I do not make mortgages. I do not do any of this kind of stuff. I like to tell people about good things, but I'm not I don't have licenses to do any of that stuff. I'm in the education information business, I guess you might say.
Yeah, I think I asked that poorly. What I was trying to ask, and I think you answered it, was if you touch on the subjects of VA loans for individuals with disabilities and things like that.
Sure. So one of the books I did is called Master Your Debt. And I talk about all the different mortgages, VA loans, conventional loans, all the different kinds of loans in that book. But again, I'm just educating people about it. And then I like to refer them to places that can actually implement the advice, like in this case, the heroescomefirst.com.
Yeah. Have you seen an uptick at all in kind of raising the awareness to that program, that Heroes Come First? Are you starting to see more people use it?
Yeah. And once people find out about it, it's like, great. It's like... I never know it would be so profitable to be a police officer, a fireman, or a veteran, or an active duty military. So,
and you made a comment at one point about being your first home. Is that like the grant, for example? Is that only available in the first home?
I'm pretty sure it's only for first home buyers. It's to help them get that down payment, which can be such a hurdle for a lot of military people. So I think it's only first time home buyers.
But a lot of the others you mentioned are for investment properties too, which obviously a lot of the listeners. Members of our audience are absolutely interested in, and they qualify for.
So you'd save money. Say you're buying a rental property of some kind, you'd get a quarter of the real estate agent's commission back and all the savings on the closing costs, just as you would if it's your primary residence or if it's a secondary, if it's a beach home or lake home or something like that. Whatever real estate you're buying or selling, this would apply as long as you're considered a hero.
Wow. Amazing. So one of the other topics that comes up in your book is talking about improving your credit score. Now, obviously, you're not the only guy talking about this. Most of the people have a program that follows. You're an educator at heart. And so it's really refreshing to kind of pick your brain on this. Now, let's talk about your side and your approach to it. And then I just had a couple questions about the concept.
Well, a lot of people are not really aware of their credit score as much as they should be.
Yeah.
There are tons of errors on these credit reports all the time. Not in many cases something you did wrong. I mean, you've seen just last year, remember we had the Equifax breach of 150 million people. Okay, they got your information. They have your name, your birth date, your social security number, your mother's maiden name, your address. I mean, these are things for the most part you can't change, so they've got you. They don't have to hit all 150 million at once. They can do it over time. So lots of people are being hit by ID theft. And that's not the only, that was one of the biggest breaches, but Home Depot and just all kinds of places are getting breached all the time. So you got to protect yourself. And your credit score is lower than it should be if you're hit by ID theft one way or the other. And what I always say, Gary, is whenever you get hit by ID theft, you're not confused with Bill Gates or Warren Buffett. You're confused with some deadbeat who doesn't pay his bills, right?
That's true. That's true.
So there's a law called the Fair and Accurate Credit Transactions Act, the FACTA law, which says that you have the right to challenge errors on your credit report. And if the original creditor that put it on there cannot prove it's accurate within 30 days, in theory, it comes off. That's the way it should work. Now, you have to struggle to do it, but that's the right you have as a consumer for your credit report to be as accurate as possible. Now, you can do it yourself. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of energy. You have to write all these letters. You can do it. But frankly, for most people, they're just not going to have the time bandwidth to kind of do something like that. So there's a place I refer people to, which is called Better Qualified. And their website is tourdecredit.com, Tourde credit.com. And that's all they do, is they challenge errors on credit reports. And typically people's credit scores will go up by 100 points or more by getting these errors off of there in many cases and putting on the good stuff and getting off the bad stuff. You see, often people have a misperception. They think that the credit bureaus can change the credit scores. In many cases, they don't. The analogy I like to say is like a library. Okay, if there's a mistake in a book, you don't go to the librarian and say, change this error. You've got to go back to the publisher of the book to publish a new version of the book to correct an error. In the case of credit scores, you have to go back to the original creditor that put that on there to have them say, oh, he didn't pay late or whatever it may be. And then that's what changed. The credit bureau is kind of reporting what the creditors are putting on there. You see what I mean? So
I do, yeah. That's a great analogy.
You're complaining to the wrong people if you complain to the credit bureaus in many cases. So the whole process is going back to the original creditor and then saying, no, I didn't pay late or whatever it may be. And that can be difficult. What if you went to Toys R Us, okay, they don't exist anymore, right? So it can be quite a challenge to get back to the original creditor to challenge errors. But it's worth it. Getting your credit score up is worth it. And you think of all the heroes out there, and you say you're in the middle of Kandahar province or something. You're not exactly thinking about your credit score. You're trying to survive, right? So all kinds of bad things happen to you while you're out there defending the country.
Right. And so do you have any kind of a feel for what Tourde Credit or Better Credit would charge for a typical?
I think it's about $300, something like that, for unlimited use. And you can have 10 errors in your credit report. And, your score goes up by 100 points. That'll save you that in lower interest alone. And not only the interest rate will be lower, but the availability. You may get refused for credit just because of errors in your credit report. So it's always to kind of stay on top of it.
Sure. So I use Credit Karma, which is probably one of the more popular ones out there. And I have it, I check it weekly or something like that. Do you feel like a good idea, or is there a better approach? Okay.
You want to monitor this all the time. I mean, that's one way to do it. I use LifeLock as well, because if something goes wrong, they immediately tell you. In fact, I had one not that long ago. In the middle of the night, like 3 a.m, I get an email from LifeLock saying somebody was just trying to take $10,000 out on your credit card at a ATM in Las Vegas. Was that you? And no, I was not in Las Vegas. They got my number somehow. And they traced it back to some Bulgarian mafia ring or something like that. I didn't do anything wrong, but somehow they got my number.
And they had dinner next to the wrong people that night.
I wasn't even in Las Vegas, So I mean, these things just happen all the time. So you really got to stay on top of it.
Yeah, gosh. That's sobering. You also, now here's a subject that I found interesting in your book that I don't pay any attention to. I kind of assumed was okay. And that is that there's a need to verify your loan and escrow payments, PMI amounts.
Correct.
Talk about that a little bit, because I've never heard that come up.
This is a problem people don't even know they have that I'm going to solve for them. That's correct.
Yeah.
So the big three are, if you have an adjustable rate mortgage, in many, many cases, the payments are incorrect. An adjustable rate mortgage is going up and down based on an index. It could be the prime rate, it could be LIBOR, it could be national mortgage contract rate, whatever, but that index is going up and down, and there's a spread over that index. Well, every time that happens, in theory, the bank is doing it right. In many cases, 40% of the cases, they do it wrong. And particularly if you have a servicer change, your mortgage is, the servicing is sold from one place to another, tons of mistakes are being made on that all the time. So there's a guy who does this named David Ginsburg, and this is all he does is audit and verify your mortgage payments to see what's in fact right. And again, 40% of the time he's finding it's wrong. So there's a website for him, which is verifymymortgage.com. And he gets your original statement, sees what payments you've actually been making. He knows all the indexes and what's gone up and what's gone down and what it should be. And then if he finds that you've overpaid, he writes a detailed letter with, you, the bank, owe him $8,000, whatever it may be. If this is how much he's overpaid, and this is the new payment he should be at. And he's got all the proof to show that, and the bank typically has to agree and say, yes, we've been overcharging him all the time. So that's the first one, is verifymymortgage.com. And as you said, the other two are escrow. A lot of banks overwithhold on escrow. Escrow is holding money aside for bank insurance payments and property tax payments. And they, in many cases, overestimate what you have to pay. And he does the same thing. Verifymyescrow.com to see if you're being over escrowed, and you get a refund on that and get your escrow down to a more reasonable level. And the third thing, as you said, is PMI, private mortgage insurance, which is insurance I hate because it's insurance you're paying the premiums on that's not even insuring you. It's insuring the lender against your default. Now, the idea with PMI is if you have 20% or more equity in your house, you don't have to pay PMI anymore. But when that happens, the PMI insurance company doesn't say, oh, you got over 20%, we're dropping it immediately. They don't care. They want the premium payments to go on as long as possible.
Right. Yeah, you have to take action. That's awesome. And that applies to rental properties as well, investment
Correct.
properties. And I think a lot of people don't associate PMI with investment properties because for a decade we didn't have that option. But now you can get conventional loans at 85% if you want to pay the PMI on it.
So there are different ways for you to get over that 20%. The value of your home could appreciate in an area that's appreciating. You could add an addition or home improvements. You could pay your mortgage off faster. There are ways of doing it, but you have to kind of take action. And so the same website, verifymypmi.com, he will kind of see your situation. Maybe you need to get an appraisal, but if you can save hundreds of dollars in PMI premiums by getting over that 20% threshold, that really pay off for you. So those are the three services. Again, most people don't even know they have this problem, never mind a problem we just solved. So verifymymortgage.com, verifymyescrow.com, verifymypmi.com. All those are the same phone number, 800-888-6781. That can help a lot of people, save them a lot of money. And overpaying, it drives people crazy that they've been overpaying and not even knowing about it.
That's awesome. So you had a section in here that kind of interested me about earning money on secured real estate funds. So it sounds like you're essentially being a lender, right? You're playing lender for real estate.
I mean, completely passively. You don't have to do anything, but the fund is doing it for you. And I know you're big into passive income. And here's a way for the average person, you don't have to be accredited, to get 8% yield over a 1-year time frame with monthly checks, or you can reinvest and have it compound if you like. And they do a widely diversified portfolio of commercial real estate loans all over the country. Apartment buildings, shopping centers, medical buildings, assisted living, student housing, just all kinds of different commercial properties. The maximum they lend is 70% loan to value, so there's always a cushion there. That 30% is what I call the skin in the game on the part of the borrower developer. And then when they sell the building, they actually share some of the profits with the fund, and the fund gives 80% of those profits to the shareholders as well. So, for example, last year, the actual return of the fund was 8.7%, 8% from the interest, 0.7% from the profit sharing. So there's a way of getting a nice passive income without you having to worry about it. You can do it inside an IRA, outside an IRA, whatever's best for you. A website for that, securedrealestatefunds.com. They've got a phone number too, 888-444-2102. Just to be clear, by the way, I'm on the board of this thing. I know these people well. I'm all in. I think this is great. I've seen their performance, and it's something I really very much believe in. Because the average person who keeps their money in a CD or money market fund earning 0% today is not getting ahead. And this is a way of getting an 8% yield without being an expert in real estate yourself.
Yeah, true. I would just like to clarify a couple, or just one thing at least, that there is some money in your savings or CDs that is, your emergency fund. So we're not talking about that, listeners. We're talking
Right.
about the money that you would otherwise be investing, don't know what to do with it, so it's sitting in your savings account somewhere, or you're worried about the market, which, in my opinion, right now would be a good concern to have.
Right.
But for whatever reason, it's not in the market, but it's not your emergency dollars that are sitting there.
Correct.
On the
This
sideline.
is not liquid. You have to have it in there for at least a year.
Exactly.
Because they're putting the money out. They're lending it out. So they don't have a lot of liquidity because they're trying to earn that 8% yield all the time. So yeah, if you need liquidity to pay bills or something, keep it in your savings account. But for the amount that you don't, to me, it's an alternative to bonds and cash. Think of it that way.
Yeah, without the liquidity, as you just commented. Do you know what backs the loan amount?
What backs the loan amount is the loans on the specific commercial properties.
Okay, so they have
First lien positions.
Okay, got it. Understood. Wonderful. Gosh, Jordan, that we've covered a ton, and hopefully, listen, the beautiful thing, podcast listeners, you can just go back and replay it, and we'll also have in the show credits, information on how you can reach out to Jordan and all of these links that he gave us. But all of this stuff is in his book. So if you would, Jordan, in the last couple minutes we have, just talk about where, the source of this, your book, and how they can find you.
So my website is moneyanswers.com. I take emails from people. I've got lots of videos. I've got a YouTube channel. I have the Money Answers show that I do. The book that we're referring to here is called Master Your Debt, where I talk about all kinds of different things in the debt area. So yeah, there's just lots of great resources out there. And hopefully in the last little time together, Gary, we've really helped these heroes could have otherwise on their real estate, improve their credit score, earn 8% instead of nothing, basically, and get rid of all these errors in their mortgages and PMI. So hopefully this will be helpful to a lot of your folks.
Jordan, thanks so much for sharing time with our audience.
Thanks so much, Gary. Really appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening. Please be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes. Be sure to check out the show's specific website and our general website, hartmanmedia.com, for appropriate disclaimers and terms of service. Remember that guest opinions are their own, and if you require specific legal or tax advice or advice in any other specialized area, please consult an appropriate professional. And we also very much appreciate you reviewing the show. Please go to iTunes or Stitcher Radio or whatever platform you're using and write a review for the show. We would very much appreciate that. And be sure to make it official and subscribe so you do not miss any episodes. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode.